April 18, 2026. Something just broke inside the IRGC. Iran's own generals sidelined their own president this week, while the news crews kept filming the riots. But the IRGC is fracturing in public, and one specific revenue line dies with it. $600 to $800 million a month. That's the yuan-oil pipeline to Beijing, and it runs through a single organizational signature that may not exist in 72 hours. Two supporting things break alongside it. The $2 million Hormuz toll loses its operator, and the proxy paymaster for Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Iraqi militias stops clearing wires. This is not a news story, it's a pricing event. What happens to $800 million a month when the organization signing the wires tears itself apart? At 6 a.m. on April 18th, IRGC's chief, Ahmad Vahidi, appeared on state television declaring that the survival of the nation now took precedence over political office. That single line captured the new reality. Within hours, the president, Masoud Pezeshkian, had been sidelined, not by a formal vote or a coup, but by a chain of refusals and absences that left the civilian government without a working mandate. The Majlis, Iran's parliament, recorded no official rejection of intelligence ministry nominees that day, but every attempt by Pezeshkian to install his own security officials was quietly blocked. Requests for an audience with Mojtaba Khamenei, the Supreme Leader's son and presumed successor, were met with silence. Rumors about the Supreme Leader's health only fueled the uncertainty, but no death was confirmed and no public appearance from Mojtaba materialized. By late morning, a council of senior IRGC officers had assumed practical control, issuing a decree that all key leadership roles would be appointed and overseen directly by the military. The civilian cabinet was left in limbo. Pezeshkian, facing the cameras before noon, warned in plain terms that without a ceasefire, Iran's economy faces total collapse within 3 weeks to 1 month. That warning was not just rhetorical. It reflected a banking system under acute stress, with foreign reserves running low and oil revenue channels now dependent on a single chain of command, one that no longer answered to the presidency. The market's need for a valid signature, someone who can authorize, clear, and guarantee the movement of $600 million to $800 million a month, became the central question. What followed was not a classic coup, but the emergence of a de facto military council acting as the final signatory on all major flows, oil, shipping tolls, and proxy payments. The loss of civilian control did not just shift the political narrative, it put the solvency of the entire system in question. If the signatory chain breaks, the machinery that moves oil, clears yuan payments, and funds proxies can seize up overnight. That is the risk the market is still missing. Receipts matter more than rumors when pricing a system this opaque. 5 proofs anchor the solvency picture for Iran's oil export and proxy finance machine. First, the toll regime. TRM Labs confirms the IRGC's Hormuz toll pipeline is pulling in between $600 million and $800 million per month. That figure is not theoretical. It is built from blockchain forensic data, with every inbound payment mapped to a vessel's AIS track and the $2 million per VLCC charge codified in the March 30 to 31 Strait of Hormuz management plan. Bloomberg's charter rate sheets for April show the $2 million passage clause applied to all VLCCs, with a 300% spike in premiums from the 2024 baseline. The second receipt is the VLCC clause itself, charter contracts that specify the toll, embedded in fixtures and matched by insurance premium spikes reported by P&I clubs. Third, the China CIPS channel. The Atlantic Council's payment tracker logs a $134 billion daily volume spike in March, with Kunlun Bank acting as the clearinghouse for yuan-settled Iranian oil trades. Chinese state-owned enterprises are documented as taking roughly 80% of Iran's seaborne crude at a 15 to 20% discount to spot, with the discount confirmed in customs manifests and state trader statements. Fourth, the casualty ledger. Open-source casualty lists corroborated by the International Crisis Group and the Ministry of Defense statistics, confirm at least 11 senior IRGC officers killed since late February, out of a total 6,000 personnel lost in the current escalation. Finally, the oil price band. $83.85 to $118 over the last 60 days sets the scenario range the market is trying to model. Each of these receipts is independently auditable. The system's fragility comes not from a single missing signature, but from the risk that no one can guarantee, clear, or enforce these flows in the event of further IRGC fracture. These are the dominoes the market needs to track, not just headlines about leadership drama. The Strait of Hormuz toll machine runs on a logic that is more mechanical than ideological. Every 30 minutes, a new 4-digit passcode is generated by IRGC Naval Command and broadcast on VHF from a control point near Larak Island. Commercial vessels, very large crude carriers, liquefied natural gas carriers, and container ships must radio the code to an IRGC frigate or fast attack craft to receive safe passage. Without it, the ship is flagged, denied escort, and subject to warning shots or electronic jamming. On April 18th, that system stalled. The officer responsible for rotating the passcode failed to transmit the 1 p.m. update. Within minutes, the backup channel issued a conflicting code. 2 separate IRGC units began broadcasting rival instructions, and the chain of command for clearing vessels fractured in real time. By mid-afternoon, satellite AIS imagery showed close to 2,000 ships anchored or idling off Larak and Kishim. The numbers are not theoretical. Marine traffic and Exact Earth both recorded the density spike. Some tankers had already prepaid $2 million for very large crude carrier passage, but their receipts no longer matched any valid clearance. Charterers scrambled to verify which IRGC unit could grant safe transit. Several operators attempted to reroute via Pakistani flag swaps or sought insurance waivers, but war risk premiums had already tripled since March. Notices from P&I, clubs and Lloyd's syndicates arrived by email. All Hormuz-bound policies now carried a force majeure clause, and coverage was suspended for any vessel lacking a valid passcode issued by IRGC. IRGC's escort fleet of 8 frigates, 12 fast attack craft, and 4 UAV-equipped patrol boats was spread thin. Each ship was tasked with enforcing the management plan's northbound and southbound lanes, but the breakdown in code logic meant that even compliant vessels were left exposed. On the VHF bands, overlapping broadcasts created legal chaos. Some captains received clearance from one IRGC channel, only to be challenged by another. No civilian maritime authority could intervene. By evening, the backlog had become a floating bottleneck, with bunker fuel running low and crew rotations overdue. The risk of collision or environmental spill grew by the hour. This is not a story about gunfire or missile strikes. It is a solvency event, measured in receipts, insurance notices, and the sheer volume of cargo frozen by a single point of operational failure. The market, still focused on headlines about political succession, has yet to price the reality that the Hormuz toll machine, responsible for $600 million to $800 million in monthly revenue, can seize up if IRGC's internal signatory chain breaks. The first domino is not a coup, but a broken passcode broadcast, and the cost is visible in every stranded hull off Larak Island. The next domino sits on the bank compliance desks in Urumqi and Beijing. Kunlun Bank, acting as the main clearinghouse for Iranian oil, faces a problem that is neither theoretical nor distant. The daily CIPS settlement volume, $134 billion at its March peak, runs on the assumption of a valid, uncontested signatory in Tehran. When that signature becomes ambiguous, every compliance officer in the chain is forced to re-examine their exposure. This is not just about know-your-customer paperwork or routine anti-money laundering checks. It is about whether any wire, any settlement can be justified to regulators if the counterparty may not legally exist tomorrow. Anti-money laundering trigger thresholds at Kunlun are well documented. The bank's compliance playbook flags any payment from a sanctioned entity above $10 million for manual review. When the IRGC's internal signatory chain fractures, every single Iranian oil payment, often in the hundreds of millions, crosses that line. The compliance team must decide, process the payment, and risk blowback from Chinese regulators and the US Treasury, or freeze the funds and risk a diplomatic incident with Tehran. In practice, this means that even if oil is loaded, and even if a vessel clears the physical bottleneck at Hormuz, the money can stall in the banking system for days or weeks. The risk is not just a delay, but a total freeze. The precedent for what happens next is clear. During the from 2018 to 2020 Venezuela sanctions window, Chinese buyers rerouted crude purchases through Malaysia and Singapore, masking cargo origin with ship-to-ship transfers and transponder gaps. Refinitiv AIS data tracked the Delta Aigayan and Athens Voyager as they executed dark voyage handovers off Kuala Lumpur. Even after direct sanctions eased, Chinese buyers never fully reverted to the original supply chain. The rerouting became permanent, and insurance frameworks adapted to the new risk profile. The lesson: once a buyer reconfigures logistics under compliance pressure, the old channel rarely recovers fully, even if the political climate stabilizes. This is the scenario now facing Iranian oil. With the IRGC's signatory in doubt, Chinese refiners are already requesting new invoice instructions, flagging barrels for substitution from Venezuela or Russia. The risk is not limited to a few lost cargoes. The entire CIPS pipeline, responsible for moving $600 to $800 million a month, can seize if Kunlun's compliance desk refuses to clear a single batch. The market's focus on physical choke points misses this banking stress. The real freeze begins not at the strait, but in the settlement ledger. If the signatory chain is broken, the price of Iranian barrels will reflect not just war risk, but the permanent possibility of rerouting, an adjustment that, as with Venezuela, may never fully unwind. Every compliance officer knows the scenario tree: process and risk sanctions, freeze and risk losing the customer forever. In this environment, even a single ambiguous signature can turn a pricing event into a solvency crisis. Iran's proxy network, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias, depends on a steady flow of cash routed through the IRGC's Quds force. These funds, often disguised as humanitarian or reconstruction aid, move through yuan settlement and crypto channels that are now exposed to disruption. When Tehran's signatory chain breaks, the impact is immediate. Digital wallets go silent, scheduled payments freeze, and procurement for weapons and logistics stalls. Blockchain analysis by TRM Labs and open-source intelligence reveals the scale and precision of these financial flows. Wallet clustering links specific crypto addresses to Houthi procurement arms, showing nearly $900 million in tracked transactions over the past year. This is not just payroll. These funds pay for missile launches, drone assembly, and the logistics behind the Red Sea campaign. When IRGC cleared cash dries up, Russian and Chinese arms brokers go unpaid, and the tempo of missile attacks drops sharply, sometimes within weeks. The $900 million figure is not a projection, but a record of actual transactions mapped against procurement contracts and delivery schedules. Hezbollah's reliance is just as acute. Its financial apparatus receives regular infusions through CIPS linked accounts, often masked as civilian aid. When these wires are delayed or blocked, operational consequences follow almost instantly. In early 2026, Belfer Center data recorded a 30% drop in Hezbollah's cross-border remittance receipts. This coincided with growing internal disputes and a marked reduction in missile stockpile replenishment. The Lebanese government's March 2026 ban on Hezbollah's military activities has only deepened the group's dependence on external cash. Without IRGC authorization, the risk shifts from mere shortfall to a breakdown in command discipline and the rise of splinter factions. Iraqi militias like Asaib al-Haq and al-Nujaba face similar pressure. Since January, both have been locked in a funding standoff, reliant on Quds Force disbursements for arms and salaries. Payment delays have triggered factional clashes and forced commanders to seek alternative, often illicit, revenue streams. The Shahed 136 drone supply chain is another casualty. About 30% of the electronics, carbon fiber, and motor parts for Russian-bound Shahed 136 drones are sourced through IRGC managed logistics. When payment authorization fails, suppliers in Turkey, Kazakhstan, and the UAE demand cash upfront or halt shipments. Russian drone output slows, and the entire supply chain becomes vulnerable to interdiction and price spikes. This is the third domino. The moment IRGC payment authority collapses, the proxy axis falters in real terms. Missiles do not launch, drone parts do not arrive, and payrolls go unmet. The receipts are visible in clustered wallets and procurement logs. A solvency crisis is unfolding in real time. The scenario tree for Iran's oil flows now splits three ways, and each branch carries its own price band and probability. I anchor these not on rumors or political headlines, but on receipts and operational signals. The base case, which I assign a 40% probability, assumes the IRGC Council consolidates enough control to keep the Hormuz toll machine and the yuan-cleared pipeline running, even if at reduced efficiency. Under this scenario, the VHF passcode system stabilizes, Kunlun Bank continues daily CIPS settlements, and China mediates enough to keep oil and cash moving. The market in this branch prices Iranian barrels in an $88 to $98 per barrel range, reflecting both the solvency risk and a premium for uncertainty, but stopping short of crisis pricing. Escalation sits at 35%. Here, the IRGC's internal fracture spills into open confrontation as multiple units broadcast conflicting Hormuz passcodes, international naval forces intervene, and the banking chain hesitates or breaks. CIPS settlements stall, insurance premiums spike, and physical oil flows are disrupted. The market's response is a price band between $100 and $115 per barrel, with volatility driven by each new report of a stalled tanker or a frozen payment. This is not just a supply shock, but a solvency event. The machinery that clears $600 to $800 million a month is no longer trusted to function. The tail scenario, at 25%, is the true institutional fracture. Multiple IRGC factions issue rival instructions, Kunlun Bank freezes Iranian exposure, and China's refiners reroute to Venezuela or Russia. The proxy axis loses funding, and the entire pipeline stays dead for more than a month. Oil prices spike to $120 to $135 per barrel, but as the rerouting becomes permanent and inventory builds elsewhere, a sharp reversal can follow, potentially down to $75 per barrel. These are not abstract models. Each scenario is anchored in receipts, VHF logs, CIPS settlement statements, and observable flows. The market is still pricing a blockade, but the deeper risk is a breakdown in the system's ability to sign, clear, and enforce the deals that keep money moving. 3 signals will tell you, within 72 hours, which scenario is playing out. The first is a statement from Kunlun Bank in Urumqi. If Kunlun confirms daily CIPS settlement volumes at or above $134 billion, the base or stabilization scenario remains in play, oil and cash are still moving, and the IRGC signature is holding. Any denial, reduction, or ambiguous language from Kunlun is a red flag for escalation. This is a public channel. Kunlun's website, Chinese state media, and regulatory disclosures are the places to watch. Even a single press release saying reviewing Iran-related exposure is enough to move the market from stability to freeze. Second, watch for a televised address featuring Ahmad Vahidi and Mojtaba Khamenei together. A joint appearance on IRIB signals that hardliner authority is consolidated. Either the IRGC Council has locked in the chain of command, or the Supreme Leader's succession is being managed behind closed doors. Absence of Mojtaba or a split broadcast points to unresolved fissures. You can track this in real time by monitoring YouTube uploads from IRIB and cross-checking timestamps with state media feeds. Third, Monitor the VHF radio logs for conflicting IRGC Hormuz passage broadcasts. When two IRGC units issue rival instructions, one granting passage and another denying it, the chain of command is broken. Marine traffic and OSINT radio intercepts scrape these frequencies. You do not need classified access. If you see message hashes diverge within a 24-hour window, that is your confirmation of institutional fracture. Each of these tells is observable, auditable, and tied to specific scenario branches. The receipts are public, and the signals are the market's early warning system. Right now, the market still prices a blockade at Hormuz, but the real solvency risk is internal. If the IRGC can't sign or clear flows, $600 million to $800 million a month freezes, and oil's true floor shifts from $90 toward $130. This isn't a coup narrative. It's a solvency event. Watch the receipts, not the rumors. The next move belongs to whoever controls the signatures.